Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 61. Welcome back, my friends. This is Velvet Eau Claire. As always, I am your guide through all of the secrets, saucy, sexy, and otherwise, of us, the ladies, gents, and non-binary folk behind the tassels. Thank you so much for pressing play today. It's always a pleasure to come back with you, and I am super excited to be back, kind of getting back into the swing of things with our regularly scheduled interviews with burlesque performers. Of course, we had the season 0 sex that happened and wrapped up, and then the last episode was a solo cast talking about productivity, which I kind of geek out over. So if you missed that, be sure to check it out. I've even got a free download for you on an act creation worksheet. And by the way, if you are one of the many people who did download, thank you so much for downloading that. Please feel free to send me an email with any feedback you have. I would like to make it better. I want to continue improving those worksheets for you. So please, as a little shout out to those people, thank you so much, and send me any feedback that you have. If you haven't listened, check it out, and then you can send me an email with your feedback. That'll work out perfect. So today I have an interview with Amber Ray, who I've actually known for quite a while. She was a visiting teacher back with my home troupe in Paris of Burlesque Moulin back in 2015. So I met her back then when I was still very much a newbie, and she taught me all about making headdresses and some amazing stuff, and it just kind of blew my mind wide open. So I was really excited to be able to bring her on the show, and we chat about a lot of, really deep stuff. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. Before I do, I have some very exciting news. This podcast episode is actually brought to you by Audible. How many of you use Audible? Raise your hand. I can't see you, but if I could, I bet you a lot of you would be raising your hands. Now, Audible is amazing. I don't know if anybody, clearly you like listening to podcast episodes. Maybe you're in the car. Maybe you're doing laundry. I listen a lot while I'm cooking. And I have discovered this wonderful world of audiobooks. You can get all sorts. They have over 180,000 titles, different things that you can listen to on your iPhone, your Android, your Kindle, your MP3 player, all that good stuff. And all these different books. Some are read by the author. Some are read by other amazing people. So if you haven't tried it out yet, we are huge fans of Audible here at Burlesque Stripped Down, and so we're partnering with them to get you a free audiobook download, and you get a 30-day free trial. So you can head to audibletrial.com/burlesque stripped down. I'm also going to set one up in case you forget. It's going to be burlesquestrippeddown.com/audible. So you can kind of get to it either way that way. And it's funny because I swear on everything that is good, we did not plan this, but Amber actually mentions middle of the episode, she talks about one of her favorite audiobooks. So listen in for that, and I will put links to that audiobook, to the free trial, to all of that good stuff in the show notes page for this episode, which you can get at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Amber Ray, AMBERRAY. So a big thank you to Audible for taking care of us for this episode. So let me give you a little bit of background about Amber Ray. Now, she is an international burlesque sensation and a downtown NYC diva with a vibrant and diverse career spanning over 17 years, musing many an expression of art. Tirelessly creating, she's won a variety of awards and attention from her bustling networks, communities, and even from some of her heroes. She's especially known for her fierce dramatics on stage, heated sensuality, as well as her unique and opulent costumes, which she designs and executes in lush, eye-popping detail. You can also find Amber Ray teaching at the New York School of Burlesque and other burlesque schools and venues worldwide, lecturing on artistic inspirational guidance and her specialized practical costume creation techniques, as well as classical burlesque moves. So I can tell you again firsthand, I know about Amber's fantastic teaching style, her costumes. I remember one of the things that I was thinking of is after seeing her, kind of her costumes from far away and on stage and how beautiful they looked. And then it was really, because I had never done costuming before, right? Before I got into burlesque. It's still not so much my thing. I'm not great at it. But when I saw them up close, I was like, oh, well not to say that they didn't look good up close, but like you can see that what you can see from far away on stage isn't always the same as what you see up close. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could do that. And maybe I don't have to be such a perfectionist because you can't always see from far away on stage, right? But she has just such amazing detail in these costumes, and the way that she showed us all of her things and explained it to us was just amazing. So a big thank you to Amber Ray, not only for coming on the show today, but for being such an inspiration back when I was first starting my burly journey a couple of years ago. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into my interview with the beautiful, the fabulous, the talented Amber Ray. That is right, my friends. I have the beautiful, the fabulous, the talented Miss Amber Ray on the line today. How are you doing, Amber?
Hello, I'm doing great. Nice to hear from you.
So why don't we just go ahead and jump right in, because we've heard a little bit about you in your bio, but I would love for you to just take a second to fill in any gaps from that bio. Tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Okay, so basically you want to know kind of like how I started?
Yeah. When did you know that burlesque was right for you?
I really think it happened when I was a teenager, but I don't think I really knew that it was burlesque. I think that, I was always really interested in being a stripper, and just the whole idea of like this feminine mystique and becoming almost like a comic book character in my life or something like that. So when I was in high school, I used to draw pictures of basically what I am now. And then eventually when I was old enough, I was 18, I started working in strip clubs, and I thought that it was going to be more of a theatrical situation. And it wasn't, but I always sort of dreamed that I would have that theatrical situation. And I remember in one of my first strip club jobs, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in one of my first strip club jobs, there was this girl named Shauna who had come back to Milwaukee, who was from Milwaukee, who had lived in New York City, and she had worked at this place called the Blue Angel Cabaret, which was like this avant-garde, like stripper cabaret that was, there was burlesque, there was, performance art going on, but it was kind of an institution before it disappeared. And actually it didn't really disappear. It sort of morphed into what is now La Scandal, which is run by Bonnie Dunn, but it's a completely different outfit. But anyway, so she was telling me about it, and I thought, one day, in New York City, I'm going to be working there. I'm going to be doing this kind of a thing. And I think I just, I moved around the country to different places. And when I got to Philadelphia, in the year 1999, I started working at like a fetish store, and I was working in strip clubs, and I found that there was a troupe there. The internet was also born at that time. So everybody who was interested in that kind of thing was finding each other.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really magical catalyst that really took off in 2001, like basically right before the World Trade Center went down. So it was a really interesting, apocalyptic sort of experience. I don't know. But I wanted to move to New York to burn it down or build it up. And I came to New York because I was in my early 20s, and I knew that if I wanted to do this for a living, that I needed to be somewhere where the opportunities for doing it was going to be, and that's basically how it all started.
That's fantastic. So you've been around, in the industry for a while then. How have you seen a lot? I mean, you've seen a lot of changes, obviously. What are some of the big things that kind of stick out to you since you've started in the burlesque world?
Completely oversaturated.
Yes.
It's, as a professional and somebody who's been working really hard for the last 17 years to do shows and be a teacher and have an accessory business and a design business, it's, there's some pros and cons. Like now, if I want to make headdresses and sell them, I have a lot of people to buy them from me. But if the idea of getting a bunch of gigs, sometimes that doesn't work out as much. And, I have grievances for the fact that a lot of people are still paying what they were paying 17 years ago when I started. And I just think that's, it's kind of bullshit. And also it's a little insulting to people who have put tons of their money, tons of their time, and worked endlessly at creating the scene, being a part of it and really putting their energy and life into it, So that's been a little bit difficult. But on the other hand, I've seen countless women all over the world come out of their shells and find self-love and find beauty in themselves and fearlessness in expressing themselves, finding their personalities, finding their humor. One thing that's just really important to me is that I'm always stressing to people, you've got to find your own voice. You've got to find your individuality. It's not about dressing up and looking like other people. It's about finding, your own voice and how to speak in this, sort of free form art that we have here. And I think a lot of people have come out of that, really becoming incredible individuals and artists and people that I can be inspired by. But the oversaturation is really difficult, especially for me right now. It's just like, I would like to call higher prices, but you've got producers who just feel like they should be paying you the same as somebody who started a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult situation when you're still trying to take part and be a part of this world and survive.
Well, that's a really good point because, with that oversaturation and the thing in being a talent-based market is that, or industry or whatever it is, is that the skills you develop as a performer over the years, they're certainly visible from stage. However, there also can be these breakout people who haven't been performing for very long and suddenly have this just raw talent. And so I can imagine for producers, there's a little bit of that, like, yes, you can see the poise and precision for, those of you who have been performing for a long time.
Yeah, but I'm talking about people who are recognizably new and inexperienced, and they're being put on the same level as me, and that's a different story. Exactly. That's not at all what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No, exactly, and that's what I mean. It's just like there's this different level when you have these new performers coming in who some of them have that raw talent, but they don't have that, and they and myself included, because I've only been performing a few years. I'm not nowhere near on the level of someone like you or the various, Suki Singapore that we've had on, Ruby Jones, all these people who have been performing for years, Holly Rebel, all these people. And so it's interesting, from a producer point of view, I'm not a producer, but I just imagine some of the producers who aren't aware of those things that go into making years and years of experience might just see this raw talent and put everybody on the same level. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just an interesting thing to unpack, right?
Right. And also, I feel like another thing is, the way that I've been able to really continue and to be a professional is to take my talents and expertise around the world. We met in Paris, and I go to Europe a lot. I go to Canada a lot. I travel the States a lot. Because I'm able to take my classes and what I'm doing. I find that when I go to smaller towns, it's easier for me to get a headlining spot and to be treated, with more respect or with, more consideration for what I'm bringing to these smaller places. So it's easier to have like a professional career more when you're traveling and you're spreading out your experience among a lot of different places. Because when you stay in the city, or actually in almost every big city that you go to, the high paying gigs are just not there. It's all about snatching up, several small paying gigs when you're in Berlin, or when you're in New York City, or when you're in Los Angeles, or any big city, because there's so many performers and so much going on that you're not as much of a specialty. So I've really, taken my skills to the road, and that I've been able to really do stuff. But, sometimes I do feel a little disappointed when I go to cities and I see that producers aren't willing to throw in an extra $20 or an extra $30 for somebody who's professional coming out of town who is paying for themselves to get there. Like if you go somewhere like, for instance, Chicago or something, and somebody offers you, $50 per number, and you're like, well, you know what, I paid to get here, and I'm giving myself to you. Like, it would be nice if you just considered a little bit extra for people who are traveling. And in fact, I've been a producer in the past, but I've never been booking out of town people. Mm-hmm. But this is something from my own experience that I feel like I'd really like to see happening more often is consideration for people who are bringing themselves from out of town and helping them with just a little bit extra towards their travel. Because if every producer helped just a little bit towards people's travel, a little bit extra, it would help them get there and not have to take that expense out. And besides, most of those shows that you pick up that are in the big cities that are, relatively small paying gigs or whatever, you need to get a lot of them in order to get anything I mean, in order to pay your bills. And I guess a lot of people are hobbyists, so I'm speaking from a professional point of view. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the problem too, is that, it's wonderful that burlesque is so saturated. I mean, in some respects, as you touched on earlier, it's wonderful that we have such a variety of people that are doing this and performing and getting into it. I think it's great. But because we have that wide variety, there's so many different needs and different opinions and different backgrounds that are coming into this. So like someone who is, a professional who, I mean, you do this full time, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have different needs than someone who just wants to be on stage and is willing to do it for $10-20,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit more about doing this full time. Like you mentioned that you have kind of several different hats that you wear under this burlesque umbrella. Someone wear hats under an umbrella. I don't know, whatever. It's fine. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So when I'm not performing, I'm working on my accessory business or doing specialty pieces for other people. My expertise is more in embellishments and headdresses and things like that. So between wearing those 3 hats in burlesque, also mentoring as a teacher, sometimes, privates and giving people advice or helping them with projects, it just pretty much fills my week up. I have a few big events a year that I sell my flowers at, and I try to keep my operation small. I used to have people helping me make my flowers a lot more, but I decided that I should utilize my time better and I should reap more of the benefits from my work. So I've been trying to keep up with my stock so that when BurlieCon comes around or Burlesque Hall of Fame, or the Toronto Burlesque Festival, or Tiki Oasis. I have a wide variety of places that I not only go to perform and teach, but I also sell my flowers. So, between all of those things, it's like, and then I get special orders all the time from people. So, I just have to keep it moving and using my time the best I can. I also have just tried to take out a bunch of time for self-care lately. Especially as I'm getting older, I find that, it's time for me to really work on my body, to really work on my health, to really work on my nutrition in order to keep up with this kind of a career, because I'm constantly lugging, huge suitcases up and down 5 flights of stairs. I live in a 5-floor walk-up and up and down subway stairs or planes, trains, cobblestones in Berlin, like whatever. Like I'm dragging my stuff all over the place. So, I've actually, as I get older, I'm trying to be grateful for and also take care of my health so that I can still continue to work into the future.
Absolutely. That's really important. Do you have a favorite, self-care practice at all?
Oh, yeah. Just after the election.
Needed some self-care there. Yeah.
I decided that, that I needed to become an expert in self-defense. Ooh. And so I've been doing Krav Maga, which is the Israeli Defense Forces contact combat and counterterrorism. I've been doing about 10 to 13 classes a week. So that's 10 to 13 hours a week of intense, effective fight training in counterterrorism. And I have to say it's completely changed my life, my discipline level, and I'm planning a self-defense burlesque course that I can take around with me when I'm touring so that I can also teach people how to learn some basic moves to take care of themselves. Ultimately, I'd like to create a world full of women who can check men, not only with their words, but with their bodies if they become in danger in any way. So, especially because, after the whole Trump thing about the pussy grabbing, I had floods of experiences flow through my mind that I had forgotten about, things that I really tried to forget. And I've been sexually assaulted in pretty horrible ways and also demeaned as an alpha woman who's out in the world trying to pave my way without sucking somebody's dick or fucking somebody. I've been pushed down and knocked down by men so many times because I've said, no, fuck you, and I refuse to let that happen anymore, and now I'm learning how to do it in a complete military sense where I can not only back it up with my social experience. I mean, I've been doing an incredible amount of research into my own white privilege, racism, and oppressions in general, other cultures, just in order to open my eyes and to start working on solving these problems that we have that have not been going away. Mm-hmm. And I think that, part of that is empowering women. Now, I've been doing that for the last 17 years of my life by being a part of this world, by being a teacher, by being a mentor. And now I feel like it's my duty to help them take care of, help them protect their bodies as well, and in this effort for them to express themselves in the way that they do.
Wow, that's beautiful. How did you find that in the first place? What brought you to that?
For a long time, people were like, "You'd really enjoy Krav Maga," and I was like, "I don't know. I'll probably get hurt, blah blah blah," which the possibility is definitely there, and I have. But I just sort of shied away from it because I thought, it would be too brutal for me. And then after the election, I just basically Googled what is the nastiest thing that I can learn the fastest? What's the nastiest self-defense that I can learn the fastest? And that's what came up. So I looked on Groupon and I found a school here in New York City near Union Square called Krav Maga Experts. I encourage anybody who comes to New York to come to a class with me. And they've become a new family of mine. I mean, I have a blast, and I know that when I'm finally ready to be an instructor, all of that teaching that I've been doing as a burlesque entity and as a mentor that way, using humor and messing with people, and also just really teaching people how to be practical. I mean, that's really a cornerstone of my educational style, is to teach people how to be practical and how to think for themselves and on the fly. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what this is about as well. It's just conditioning yourself to be ready to react, in the way that you need to. I mean, self-defense, learning how to be an expert or to be really good at it is a journey that you have to spend tons and tons of time doing in order to reap the benefits. But, it's a passion that I think everybody should have, especially since it's so fun. I mean, the amount of contact that I'm getting from all different kinds of people, even though we're fighting with each other and learning how to fight, there's a protective and a beautiful form of camaraderie that I've learned in this place, which has really opened me up to trusting other people and learning how to protect myself, but at the same time, really, establishing bonds with people who have the same ideals as I do. It's like a whole nother family. Like, I found a whole nother family of people, and I feel very deeply about it. I mean, because the thing is like, when you're touching people or when you're fighting or whatever, there's different chemicals released. There's different pheromones. And then, of course, you've got the adrenaline and the serotonin and all these things that are happening because of the contact. And I feel like it's just made me a healthier person mentally, and it's also made me a healthier person physically. And I think I'm 38 now, and so as I'm approaching 40, I have this vision of me getting older and being stronger than I ever have as I was younger. And I realize that that's something that I really need to work on as I get older. There's countless people to be inspired by that are much older than myself. And even when I started in burlesque, I looked at people like Joe Boobs or, people who are, substantially older than me, who are like, kitten developed. Like, those are my heroes. Those are the people that I want to be like when I get there. And so, after 17 years of doing this, it's been a constant striving towards that. And I feel like finally getting really in tune with my body physically, even though I've always been a dancer or whatever and doing whatever. I mean, a stripper, yeah. Not really a dancer, but
a different type.
Yeah, but like getting in tune with all of those things is really important. I mean, because at the end of it all, there's no great mystery. The answer is really, what is your relationship with the universe, And a friend of mine said that to me, and it really made me put things into perspective. So I try to remember that every day.
Tell me a little bit more about how you want to kind of integrate the two, because I really love what you touched on, this idea of kind of bringing in like burlesque and self-defense is kind of a general term for some of these different practices.
Now, there's been stuff like this already, so it's not like it's completely my idea. Mm-hmm, it's just that my class will be specific because I'm coming from a Krav Maga background, but of course this is probably not going to be until another year and a half or whatever. I definitely need a lot more time to be, an official trainer. Like, I'm not just going to start doing this. I mean, I think my instructors know that. I basically have been there more than anybody in the course of the school, except for maybe one other person. So I think they understand that I'm really dedicated. Anyway, so my form is definitely going to be like self-defense for Showgirls. So it's going to be ideas of, you know, dealing with people who are drunk or in a bar situation, or at the end of the night when you're trying to leave with your costumes, you know, learning how to use different things to defend yourself, whatever's available to you. But also when I get into the moves, I'm planning on synchronizing them with music so that people can really get into the muscle memory of it. Yeah. Because the one thing that's going on in my school now is that most of the training sessions we have music in the background, but often we're not using it to synchronize. But I have one trainer who is an expert, and he's unbelievable. And he does a couple different classes that are like synchronized, and usually they're strength training classes, not necessarily self-defense, but he synchronizes them with music, and we're doing the punches, we're doing the kicks, we're doing the moves. So I would definitely, you know, not only talk about situational things, but also get people into the rhythm of understanding the muscle memory of being able to react in specific situations.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I love that, you know, that you're planning to not only touch on the practical aspects of this is what you do and this is how you protect yourself in this, but to kind of, you know, to integrate that music. And I love what you touched on too about, you know, how that kind of physical contact and that connection that you make with people in those type classes that, to be honest, I mean, and I'm not sure how it is in the New York industry because I'm not there, but I know in Paris and in other places, we don't always get a lot of interpersonal. It's funny because burlesque is, you know, we still get to interact and everything, but you're dancing by yourself. Usually there are duos, there are groups, but it's kind of lonely sometimes for a lot of people.
Oh, I can tell you all about that.
Tell me, please do. Go ahead.
Being on the road all the time, I mean, sometimes I end up in amazing situations where people are really excited that I'm coming. And then sometimes I end up coming into a situation where I feel like people are cold or distant and I'm really lonely. I mean, most often people are excited and they want to, you know, hang out with me and have fun with me or whatever, or are open to that. Sometimes I'm feeling kind of, you know, solo as well. I grew up an only child and I didn't really grow up around people very much. So I definitely need my alone time, and I can get lonely, but on the road especially. So I mean, it depends on what situation you end up in. I mean, I'm not going to name any places, but there's been a lot of places that have been way better than others because I can tell people really want me there and they're not just doing it, you know, and that's always a really nice thing. But I would encourage people to hug each other more in the scene, and just because I've just read these articles about, you know, the oxytocin and the serotonin and all these things that are released when we are able to physically embrace each other or play with each other or have trust with each other when it comes to our bodies. I mean, obviously everything should be consensual, but like even in fighting, like for instance, my trainer today was like, "Can I grab you by your hair?" And I was like, "Thank you for asking." Yes. You know, like, because he had to show something, you know, but so I just think understanding our boundaries and not being afraid to challenge our boundaries, as long as it's safe for everybody, is a really good thing. And that's where I think fighting and dancing, and also, you know, being in dressing rooms and being all on top of each other, like we should be able to be more human with each other, especially in the wake of what's going on in the world right now. I mean, now is a time where we need to stand our ground and be fierce, you know, for people who are violators, but we need to love and embrace the other people around us for strength. So this is something that's on my mind a lot since I'm doing all of this training and I'm in such deep place of discipline. And I realize, you know, that this is going to take time, and that's why I go back so often, because I'm like, I didn't get it, I have to go back and get it, you know. And so every day is, I mean, and I'm lucky that I have a freelance career that, you know, I can spend, you know, 1 to 4 hours a day training, and I can still go home and I can work for 8 hours or 6 hours or 5, or do a show and do some of my other stuff or whatever. So yeah, it's been a great thing for me to wake up to this stuff lately.
So I'm curious as far as burlesque, right? And especially, going to these, going into like your studio and doing the training that you're doing, you're interacting with a lot of people who probably aren't familiar with burlesque. So I like to ask a lot of people lately, how do you define burlesque? So if maybe a burly virgin is going to ask you, what is burlesque? What is this thing that you do? How do you answer?
Sure. I get asked quite a lot because I put myself around a lot of people that aren't familiar. Yeah, so I always tell people that it's creative theatrical striptease. In general. And then I say, but it can be, also put together with a bunch of variety. You've got your comedians who are hosting or are part of it. You've got, aerial performers. You've got sideshow performers. You've got all kinds of different talents. You've got people who are funny. And I really, when I'm describing it, I always, talk strongly about this idea of individuality and people basically finding their own voice. Like, for instance, I'm in this, fight training with a lot of actors. And, the chief executive of the school was like, Amber, do you do any acting? You should do some acting because you have a lot of charisma. And I'm like, no. I'm like, because I get to go up on stage for 5 to 10 minutes, be who I am, do what I am. I don't have to read somebody else's part, and I don't have to play somebody else's game unless I want to, unless I get asked to or whatever. But for the most part, I said, that really isn't my desire. I like living my life the way I want to, and I like expressing myself the way I want to. I'm not ruling it out completely in the future that I will ever try acting, maybe, because I'm the kind of person who likes to become obsessed with something and then, then like figure it out or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, that's my best way of describing it to people. I just basically say like I'm a fancy showgirl, who gets naked and everybody gets really excited about it, especially once they like actually become friends with me and see the pictures and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, come to a show, like I have a lot of really great things going on. And people are so funny though, because like now people are always asking me, how was your show? Are you excited? And I'm like, oh my God. And like, I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of shows in the better part of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So like, for me, it's like, yeah, it was great, but it's not like, oh, I'm nervous or, like I'm really excited or, it's not that I'm not excited. It's just, it's just the same shit to me. And I'm really glad that it's not even shit, but it's just the same thing to me because I've just been doing it all these years. So it's just like I just went to work and did my thing, and now I'm here at training.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like your job, which doesn't mean you don't like your job. You love your job, but most people get nervous going to work and having a meeting, every day.
Exactly.
Like that's the same thing. So
and then there's been special things that I've been really excited about, but I don't get nervous. Like for instance, a couple years ago or a year and a half ago, I got booked to do Alan Cummings' surprise birthday party.
Oh, cool.
And, I came out and my friend was singing and I did the thing and, I was excited to do it. I was like, I can't wait, because I knew that I was going to totally fucking, make a scene and blow them away because I know what I do and I love what I do. So that was an exciting moment for me to be like, I've been such a big fan of him my whole life. So, or as much as I've known him in my life, whatever, as much as he's been famous, I said, but for me, it's not like I don't really get nervous. I get excited at this point because I'm so, well versed in what I do that I just, just put me on a stage. I'll just do it,
And do you find that's true even when you're debuting like a new act or anything like that? You're just, do you like, is it just because you're comfortable on stage and you can handle whatever comes, or do you like super rehearse it so that you're like totally good?
Yeah. Pretty much. But to be fair, I'm an improvisational performer. Okay, cool. I didn't grow up with any dance training or anything. I just move with musicality and with my spirit, and that's how I express myself. So for instance, like it's difficult for me in Krav Maga because there's all this choreography with different things. Like certain things have to happen before others and in a certain way. So, it's almost like I'm retraining my brain to be more of a choreographer. But all these years, you know, you could just throw me on stage with a song and I'll just do it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
for that kind of a job, for burlesque, like I love an opportunity to do that, which is one of the reasons that I love performing with live bands, because I can dance as long as I want to. I don't have to worry about the song ending. I can just communicate to the band to keep playing and to get into it. And they're watching me and we're feeding off of each other. And
cool.
that allows me to do whatever's going on in the room. Like, you know, if I have customers that I have to deal with, or if I'm in, you know, performing in the round, or if I feel like harassing people or, you know, getting into the audience. I like that improvisational factor. You know, that kind of a thing is what really thrills people, when you're slick enough to pull them in and do something that, like, you know, tricks them or wows them.
Do you remember a point? I mean, I know it's been a long time, but like where you stopped being nervous, or was it? I mean, I assume you used to be nervous before you went on stage, right? Sometimes,
Yeah.
Or was that never really a thing?
No, there was definitely moments. Like when I first started singing, I was super afraid to get on stage and sing, because it was showing a new part of myself, and I knew that I was capable of singing, but like, you know, I was afraid that I would get, like, you know, just jumbled up on my words, or like miss a sound cue or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was a little difficult. And that happened maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. I started singing here and there. Even now when I have to sing, I get nervous. But you know what the trick of that is? You just keep doing it. I mean, that's why I moved to New York,
Right.
You know, so that I could perform on stage over and over and over again all week long. And it just became, you know, like my training is now this muscle memory, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, that was definitely a nervous point. But as far as like burlesque goes, I have to say that I started in a stripping, you know, background. So like for me, I learned my stage presence, and I learned how not to be afraid of people while I was on stage by being naked as a stripper. So, it was a little bit of a switch over with burlesque, I have to say, because I was incorporating this new element, and it was a totally different type of audience. But it didn't take too long for me to feel really comfortable with it. I mean, this has just always felt like something I was meant to do. Yeah, I mean, even when I was a kid, you know, watching Flashdance or Dirty Dancing or any of that when I was a little girl, like, I mean, I would just be dancing in my living room and going crazy. And by the time I hit my teenage years, I was dancing in my room, and that's how I actually lost weight and, like, you know, became confident in myself to eventually become a stripper. I just became so moved by music that I just had to dance freely.
So I'm curious to know, because you know, even those who are professionals, you've been doing this a long time, I'm sure that, you know, we all still have things that we deal with internally. And so I'd love to know, if you're comfortable sharing, what is currently your biggest mindset or internal struggle these days?
It definitely is that whole thing of getting older and being experienced, and, you know, feeling like I'm, you know, I think it's really my experience with other people who have kind of screwed me over or put a knife in my back. I think that, there's been a handful of people throughout my career who have done some pretty crappy things to me, and even though I've tried to approach them to have a conversation to straighten things out, I've gotten them ghosting me, and mostly I think it's because they're in the wrong and they don't want to face me. So I have this struggle with, I mean, I know I have to let it go and stuff like that, and I do. But, you know, the thing is relationships go on, and as time goes on, you never know when something like that's going to happen again or whatever. So I think that, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm really bothered by the lack of respect that I've gotten from certain people that I've worked with that has turned into personal situations. Because even though I'm a really strong character, I really am about coming to the table and working it out. Like, part of the reason I'm so confrontational about things is because I really want to be able to at least just sit down, clear the air, set boundaries with each other so that we don't affect other people or other things going on. You know, I don't want to put friends or other performers in the middle of things. And so that's been pretty heartbreaking over the years. You know, I've got a few knives in my back that I'd really like to ask people to their face, like, when are you going to pull that out? But other than that, I think I struggle with fear of success. I think that I'm extremely capable of doing things that are 10 times greater than what I do. And I feel that not only lack of time, but also, I don't know, I guess to a degree I really like the fame level that I'm at because I feel like it's kind of underground. I feel like a lot of people know who I am, but I'm not completely at the top of things. So I like this idea that I can come in and out. I don't like being idolized. I don't like being put on a pedestal. I like being respected. I don't like being put on a pedestal.
Right.
You know, I think there's a difference. I don't need everybody to love me. That's definitely not something that I'm not a narcissist like that. Like, and I've known plenty. I mean, we all have. But yeah, and I think that that's kind of something that I'm trying to work with through my training right now is like, okay, well, I want to be that much stronger. I want to be that much better at burlesque, and I still haven't done my masterpiece. Like, it's been years and years since I've even tried to compete at Burlesque Hall of Fame because I really don't feel like I have something new and extremely exciting that's going to wow people. Mm-hmm. And for me, I need to come out and do something like that. Like in a way, the fight training has changed a lot of people's perspective or has made a lot of people take notice of me in a way that they never did before. And becoming an expert at that, you know, has changed people's perspectives of me and has wowed them a little. So I'm glad that I have that to offer. But, you know, I mean, ultimately, I would like to have my own show in New York, even though I hate producing. I mean, I love art direction. I love putting ideas together. I do not like all the other work. And because I've got 3 hats I'm wearing, you know, and then if I was a producer, it would be 4. You know, that makes it even more that my talent would suffer if I would try to do something. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but I feel like I'm building strength through my training in that way, like mental strength, in order to like approach the next, climb to the next plateau that I need to accomplish in burlesque in order to stay, you know, somewhat in the eye of the people. I mean, I feel lucky because, you know, for the first 3 years of the top 50 burlesque, I was in the top 20. Nice. And then I fell off the list. And then, not this last year, but the year before, I came back as number 17 again. Oh. And then this last year, I wasn't on it. It's okay that happens. I mean, I was really touched and honored that I got on it again because there's so many insanely amazing people and talent in the world that I appreciated that people took notice and voted for me. Because honestly, that's all I really want to hear from one of my fans. I don't, you know, if somebody comes up to me and fawns all over me or puts me too much on a pedestal, I get uncomfortable. Right. But if they come up to me and they say, hey, I've been following your career and I've seen everything you've done and I just love it. Thank you. Like, to me, the recognition is worth more than the praise. Yeah. And so I'm always striving to try to do things that can garner that recognition, you know, without having to be an ego monster or a Barnum and Bailey. Like, I jokingly call myself, one of my taglines is a professional sensationalist. And I got that because, you know, Carl Jung had this term called sensationalist, and it's somebody who makes everything bigger than what it really is. Mm-hmm. So I call myself a professional sensationalist as kind of a joke, not as a mental disorder, which is, I think, kind of what he meant. But, like, you know, so it's my way of, like, making a joke out of that shit because that's kind of my perspective and how I see the world. It's not like, oh, I'm so great and everybody must worship me and I must be queen. Like, this is not something that appeals to me. I want everybody to rise up. I want everybody to feel as alive and on fire and full of energy and spirit as I do in their own way. You know, like, it's really important to me to see that.
So do you think your fear of success kind of like comes like, is that something that like you don't want to like leave other people behind? Is that part of it, do you think? Or
No. And no, it's just more about me not being an ego monster.
Yeah.
You know, it's more about me not being perceived in the wrong way. And it's also in keeping my distance from people, because even though, you know, I'm a communicator and I love to teach and I love to perform, the other half of my personality is really reclusive. Like I really like to be alone. I really don't like to have, I don't need people constantly fawning over me, telling me how great I am, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So, yeah, I think that it's this balance of that, and it's also like, when you become really successful, people have so much more expectations from you. Oh, yeah. And I feel like I don't really like it when people expect too much from me. So it's that fear as well. It's not measuring up to what other people want from me. Because I don't want to give it. My journey is my own. And if I choose to give it, I give it because I want to, not because I feel like I have to in order to garner love from somebody. And I would love other people to open up to that idea more. You know, because
that's really deep. Yeah, that's really
I think a lot of us start as performers because we want all this love from people. And granted, you can get all this love from people and it's great. But I think at some point you have to take this, you know, what is the mental health point of view on that? You know, like how do we get this attention from people and learn to internalize it in a way that doesn't become toxic? You know, but that's everybody's personal journey to work out, you know, but for me, it's been a huge deal, you know, to do things right, even though I have a big mouth and I burn a lot of bridges, but, you know.
The best people.
Yeah, you know, but like in the last couple months, like all I've been saying is, you know, like when things aren't going right, I'm just like burning bridges and blazing trails. I'm like,
yes.
And that's like my mantra now. It's burning bridges, blazing trails. You can always build another bridge with somebody else, but if it's a bad, weak bridge that's falling apart and is dangerous, fucking get rid of it.
Exactly. It's not just about haphazardly burning everything, but those ones that are not, they're not contributing to you anyway.
Right.
You know,
I also like to use that metaphor, you know, my other metaphor is weeding your garden. You know, like it's really important. I mean, in the last couple of weeks I've had 3 or 4 friends lose their parents and other people that they've known or family members. And, you know, it just, as I get older and older, I cannot get it out of my head or out of my mind or my consciousness. The time is so valuable. Who we spend our time around is valuable. You know, the boundaries that we set, you know, our own self-worth, our own self-value. I think that, you know, in order to become a really incredible and stable individual, we need to constantly challenge ourselves in those things, a lot of those things that make us uncomfortable even.
So how about if we flip it, you know, that's a big struggle you have, and how about if we flip it to your biggest strength? Just kind of an open-ended, what do you consider one of your biggest strengths in life?
I think it's determination, because, you know, even as a young child, I knew that I was always going to live the life that I wanted to live. I grew up with an abusive, both physically and mentally abusive mother who, you know, just never chose the right things in life, and she constantly blames other people, and she's still abusive, and she still won't, you know, basically admit those things. And I just based my whole life on proving her bullshit wrong, and I did. I mean, 200 times over. So I think that, you know, my determination for living my life the way I feel that life is meant to be lived, like to truly become in tune with your spirit and express it in a way that's, you know, one with the universe, is really, really important. So I definitely have to say it's my determination. I mean, because even like, you know, I hate to go back to my training again, but, you know, my trainers watching me come in 10 to 13 times a week, they see that determination and they love me that much more for it, because they understand that everything they've dedicated their life to means everything to me. And like, so I think people, you know, if you want to get something done, if you really want to do something, you can't waste time, you know. Another thing that happened was, you know, when I was in Philadelphia and I started doing burlesque in Philadelphia in 2000, I had decided I'm moving up to New York because instead of doing it once or twice a month, I wanted to do it all the time. And I remember a girl in my troupe who was 36, she was a beautiful, amazing girl. She just looked at me and she's like, go, Amber. She said, do it. If I was 21 again like you and I had what you have, she's like, I would go. I would just do it. And she's like, I'm happy for you. I think it's a great decision that you're moving to New York, And so I think that, my dad is an amazing person. My parents weren't together since I was 6 months old, but my dad always really loved me and, understood that my spirit was important. And when he was around, he took great care of that. And I just feel like, he always said to me, pursue your passion. And it's true. People recognize your passion. They recognize your love. They recognize when you're doing something out of the sheer joy and love for it, and it's gotten me everywhere I've wanted to go in life. People think that you need money to get everywhere. And, don't get me wrong, my privilege has definitely gotten me places. I'm a white woman. Even though I grew up poor, I'm well aware of my privileges and what I've been able to get. But I'm all about creating a world where I can smash those privileges and I can bring them to everybody. And I feel like burlesque is really one of the perfect vehicles for that situation. I think self-defense is as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I literally love everything you just said.
Thank you.
And I think, coming from, I always get really like kind of real and raw, and that's something that I struggle with. And so I know when I go back and edit this episode, I'm going to have to like listen to that and be like, all right, Velvet, like you need to listen to this. Like this is important stuff,
But you know what? Real and raw is great because it definitely puts you where you're supposed to be. Yeah. If you spend the rest of your life pandering to what you think other people want, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I still suffer from this to this day. Sure. Like, I've kept relationships with people, even though something wasn't right, and eventually it comes to a head, and I think that, we all have our cycles with people, so I'm not saying just ditch everybody now, but like, especially, somebody that you find might be bad for you or a problem, but like, I just feel like it's important to be aware of these things, and to start really looking into those things and self-reflecting on those things. And if you reach out and somebody doesn't want to reach out to meet you, fucking cut that tie and get it over with, because that in itself shows that they're not there to build a bridge with you. They're there out for themselves, and they don't care about not only your relationship within a community, but also just their personal relationship that you have with them. I just feel like real and raw, my mom always used to say to me, my abusive mother, she used to say to me, your mouth is going to get you in trouble. And you know what? I have to say, my mouth has gotten me everywhere I've wanted to be. Yes, right. I've lost a lot of people in my life. Yes, I've lost jobs. I've lost situations. But you know what? They set me on the course of where I was supposed to be. I didn't waste time pandering or trying to be something that other people wanted, following the status quo. I never subscribed to that bullshit, and I never will. I've definitely had my moments of compliance, but like overall, my philosophy in general is like, do what you feel is right as long as you're not hurting anybody. And even though I have hurt people, that's the other thing is when you do something wrong, you have to confront that. Absolutely. And you have to deal with that. And that's part of the learning process. So being real,
all fuck up, like we all do.
Yes. And being real and raw is about that. And you know what? I'm still real and raw, but I've definitely become more diplomatic as the years have gone by because, the wisdom takes over once you've been through this situation 5 billion times. Yeah. And also the persistence of that. Like, another thing that happened in the beginning of my career when I first started doing burlesque, when I was living in Philly, I was watching PBS, and the costume designer for The Sixth Sense was on there, and some, silly little public, show or whatever, and they were asking her, do you have any advice for people who are up and coming? And she said, just don't stop. Just don't stop. Just keep going. You will get there if you just keep putting your passion and your love into things. And that's basically what my dad said. And, and it's true. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of heartbreak along that path. But you know what? It makes you stronger. It builds those muscles. But, we also have to confront our mental problems and our baggage and all of that stuff in that process in order to move on. Otherwise, you're just going to keep carrying these problems from one person to the next.
Yeah, I remember having like this vivid like realization. I was 20 and I had moved to Ireland I had left school for university for a little bit and I moved to Ireland to work in a homeless shelter. And I literally remember, and I'm pretty sure I even like wrote it, maybe those were the early days of Facebook. I think I even wrote it on Facebook at one point, and it was just something along the lines of like, as it turns out, your problems follow you even when you move across the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And it's silly because it seems so obvious, but it was really that first time that like, oh shit, just changing my environment does not fix everything. I need to start addressing these things within me. And I can't just keep running away from them. So it's a tough journey we all have to go through, but I think it's awesome when we can kind of support each other. And one of the things I aim to do in this podcast is that's why I like to ask these questions about your mindset struggle, because I think it's important that we realize that everybody's going through this shit, you know, in different levels, different parts, different whatever, but we all deal with this. Nobody is their perfect Instagram self. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's just so important that like, we stay open to that journey. Yeah. I mean, when things go wrong, it means something's going right. You know, we have to just keep trying. And, you know, and I think that that's just really important. It's like, if you have a passion, if you love something, the more love and energy you put into that, the more opportunities, the more people, the more things are going to pop up in the place around you that are going to help you live that life. Like when I first moved to New York, I moved here by myself, and I started going out to clubs by myself, completely dressed up, like over the top. And people just started coming up to me that were producing these parties and going, "Who are you? Where did you come from? Do you want a job?" And I was like,
wow.
Holy shit, is that all it took? You know, yeah. And it's true. If you just show up with your passion, people will pull you in. I mean, as long as it's not some, you know, egocentric, like, social disorder, you know, like, I mean, obviously people can see that stuff, and listen, we all have to wrestle with all that shit. I suggest, honestly, I think that it would do a world of good to everybody to just look up the cluster B personality type social disorders. Because, really? Because if you're looking up what a narcissist is, if you're looking up what a histrionic personality is, if you're looking up what a bipolar person is, or something like that, you can start to spot like that there's disorders in people, and that they're, you know, like they're not, that you're not crazy, and that they just have a disorder because of whatever baggage or whatever has happened in their life. It becomes a lot easier to become objective when people are being shitheads to you, you know, and to understand that it's not your struggle, it's their struggle. And also to read those things, you can confront your own behavior. Yeah. You know, I've had narcissistic tendencies because my mom's a narcissist. You know, like I've had, you know, I've just seen a lot in other people, actually. I don't really carry too many of those mental disorder-ish situations, but honestly, like, looking into those has actually started to make me not feel so crazy, because you start to realize that there's just a lot of people out there who are sick and haven't dealt with their problems. And they act out in certain ways, but we can't take responsibility for other people's bullshit, and we can't take it personally. You know, like everybody's experience is something their own. And, you know, I have a couple books that really changed my life. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Yes. And also he has a book called The Mastery of Love, and that got me through my divorce and changed my life and set me on, quickly set me on the path of where I am right now.
Check that one out.
The Mastery of Love is great because it talks all about fear and it being this invisible disease that everybody has, and basically how to maneuver through our own fears and other people's fears and recognize them so that it doesn't become this spiral of self-destruction. So
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
I'm really into being practical, and these books are super short reads. Cool. So, and you can also get them on Audible, and they're just super short. Like, you can get through them in a day or two, and they're just insanely helpful for how practical they are. I'm always looking for the loophole or ways to cut corners, or, you know, the ways to do things properly without, you know, going the long way around.
That's super cool. And by the way, for everybody listening, we totally did not plan this, but as you heard in the beginning of the show, actually Audible is our brand new sponsor for this podcast.
Awesome.
And I promise you, this was not a plug. This was not planned. So if you want to check out one of those 2 books, I'm going to have links in the show notes for this episode, which is at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Amber Ray. That's RAY at the end. So you can go check that out, and you can go also to audibletrial.com/burlesque stripped down. That'll take you right to be able to get a free trial. You get to try out a free book for 30 days and just, give it a go and see what you think. And I'm sure you can easily get through one or maybe both of those books in that time. So.
And I love Audible because I can work on my flowers. I can do my stuff and still get my books in.
Exactly. It's been such between that and podcasts, like I just always, because I drive a lot for my other jobs, my muggle jobs and everything. And then also, when I'm crafting and doing stuff like that, or even, working on some of the podcast stuff.
Right.
So Audible is great, and we thank Audible for taking care of us on the show. So, well, I know we're nearing the hour mark, so we want to start wrapping up. But I did want to, just because I know you have such a good perspective on this, and so I want to spend just a couple minutes in our controversy corner, if we can, just a few minutes to touch on. Basically, I'm just going to say strippers versus burlesque performers. Not like in a fight, but I know that you have such a unique perspective that I can't really contribute to, and I would love to hear some of your thoughts briefly on this.
Yeah, strippers are your sisters. Be kind. Yeah, forget it, man. Sex workers are, it's a tough job. I've been a stripper. I've been a dominatrix. I've never been a hooker because nobody hot asked to pay for sex with me. But, I wish I could cross that one off my bucket list, but I'm still waiting for that pretty woman situation. But I don't down them, I think that sex workers and anybody deserves to live how they want as long as they're not hurting you. I really think that it's inappropriate for anybody to pass judgment on them. And I think that everybody deserves respect. I know strippers aren't coming after burlesque dancers, so or putting them down for the most part, but people aren't afraid to pick and choose what they think is right when it comes down to taking your clothes off. It's a personal situation. And it's, granted, there's a lot of bad burlesque dancers out there and there's a lot of boring strippers, but you know what? It's their fucking choice and they're allowed to do that. So I feel very strongly about just respecting people for their choices and just focusing on yourself.
What did you think about the whole, the hashtag, and I guess it's still going on, the hashtag not a stripper stuff?
Oh, I didn't really look too much at that. I spend most of my time with racism.
Okay, yeah. I didn't really get too far into it too, but I just know, it's one of those things where I feel like I can kind of see both sides a little bit, or see some different aspects of it, because on one hand, it's like, oh, I'm better than being a stripper. I'm not a stripper. I'm a burlesque performer. That's better. But on the other hand, also, I am not a stripper. I don't want to steal that name from someone who has earned it and who works in that, So it's one of those.
Yeah, I think everybody's a stripper and they just need to shut up. Yeah. Because, honestly,
fair enough.
If you're taking your clothes off creatively, however or what, just because you don't work in a strip club doesn't mean that you're not a stripper. And all of those burlesque dancers, all of our legends, they were strippers. The song, The Stripper, ba-da-da-da-da-da, that's a fucking stripper. Yeah. So, those are your grandmothers. Those are your relatives. Right. You need to respect your ancestors, your grandmothers, your relatives if you're going to take on this, this situation where you are representing them on stage by stripping yourself. So, they can come with me and brawl on that situation any day they want. But a lot of that had to do with pole dancing. I know. And it was people who aren't doing burlesque but are doing pole dancing. And but I'm not a stripper. And it's like, well, you know what? Guess who made that freaking famous? It was strippers. So, respect. And you know what? It's not an easy job. And that, they may make a lot of money, but you have no idea what they're up against in order to make that money on a daily basis. Right. So, you know what? People need to get off their fucking high horse and stop judging things that they have absolutely no experience in. And that comes down to racism as well. A white person isn't allowed to say to a person who's indigenous or Latino or whatever, what they think their experience is. Just like it's not right for a man to say what a woman's experience is.
Yeah.
You know, we need to start using that intersectionality in order to respect each other and understand that we all have oppression struggles, except for white men who deserve a beatdown, but that's a totally different podcast. But anyway, no, I mean, not all white men, ha ha ha,
Yeah,
but you know what I'm saying.
Not all men.
Not all white men.
Yeah, not all white men.
No, but in general, like, it's time for humanity to come to terms with our oppression. And in general, I think that's fundamentally what your question comes down to, is that you're trying to be oppressive with a tag like that. And, you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to smash it because that's what I do. Yeah. I break barriers, and I'm not going to stand for it, and other people aren't going to stand for it. And I'll fight for it any day because you know what? Most people can't even, I mean, and this is completely not set out of ego. This is set out of years of study, daily study of racism, of feminism, of everything. And I never went to school for anything. This is me from my own experience and also from my own, you know, confrontations of my own uncomfortable places and everything. You know, we need to start facing ourselves and recognizing when we're being oppressive to other people. The only people that deserve oppression are the oppressors. And if you're gonna, you know, try to put somebody down or hold somebody down because you're on a high horse, then you deserve the pushback. You deserve the oppressive pushback because this bullshit has got to end. Humanity is not going to transform. Our brains are not going to change. We're not going to evolve without that push.
So when it comes to burlesque and stripping, like as someone who was a stripper in a strip club environment, you don't have an issue with burlesque performers calling themselves strippers? Because I have heard of strippers who do take issue with that.
Definitely
because
not.
Because they quote, we haven't earned that moniker and things like that. I feel like that's where part of my fear comes from, is that I do a lot of like gender and sexuality studies, and I know that people get very upset when other people who haven't quote earned it try to take words that don't belong to them, you know?
Yeah.
And so I have this, and you're absolutely right, it comes from privilege. I have this white privilege fear of stealing words that I don't have the right to.
You know, I think that's healthy for you to recognize that. I think that everybody should be asking themselves that question, and that's where the healthy mindset begins.
Yeah.
But overall, no, I don't think so. As long as you're not talking derogatorily about other people, and if you want to put a claim on it, you're a stripper. I mean, anybody who decides to put the title stripper on them is already facing backlash and oppression. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just sort of feel like, you know, if you've earned it, you've earned it. But also, I'm coming from the place of somebody who's definitely earned that title.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but I also feel like my form of burlesque, you know, is entwined with that. Like, when I'm at Duane Park and, you know, I'm doing, like, I'm dancing in the audience and I'm messing with people, you know, I'm being extremely glamorous, but I get raunchy, you know, because the whole idea is to break the fourth wall. I mean, not completely. I mean, not to be, like, like, over the top, like, make everybody uncomfortable. But to push their limits, hell yeah. You know, like, I do get, you know, raunchy. I do get, you know, I do get titillating or, you know, into pushing the boundaries with people. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that as long as you're doing it with respect, I mean, honestly, if you're taking off your clothes and you're stripping, that to me means that you are. And, I mean, I think that that's fine. Yeah. If strippers are going to whine about that, then, you know, when they're going home with $1,000, they can fucking cry on their $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I definitely don't go home with $1,000.
Exactly. So, like, excuse me, you can't use that title. You don't get paid enough for that title. No, come on, that's bullshit. That. You know, like whatever.
Yeah,
it's like go back to work and make $1,000. Thank you.
Right.
You know.
Right. Like labels are just hard because on one hand, I was just reading actually from Dr. Liz, who was on this show a couple months ago now, and she has her email list and she sent an email about labels, and we're talking about, you know, sexuality and pansexuality and bisexuality and queerness and this and that, and you know, and we're talking about she's talking about like the dichotomy, good and bad of labels, because we need labels to talk about, to be able to express who we are and to identify with groups and be able to Google and find each other and all of these things. And so on one hand, it's hard when I find people asking me, oh, so you're like, so burlesque is like stripping. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, we do. It's not like in a strip club. And I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I just, I'm trying to define what it is. But it's finding that line, finding that balance between creating these boundaries between what different people do,
right,
and not demeaning one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just an exercise for everybody in every situation ever.
We can all get better and we can all improve. I mean, I'm so glad to chat with you about this kind of stuff. So
it's a universal situation, and I think that's the point. Is like when you get older, and that's the thing is like that really kind of breaks my heart and what I was talking about in the beginning. And it's like, when you put 17 years of your life into something, and people disrespect you when you help create what they're a part of. It's just, respect your elders, because they came before you, they paved the path for you, even if they're assholes, I guess, and I've been guilty of not respecting my elders. So I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. I'm trying to be honest, and say that I've had to confront that myself. There's definitely been moments where I have to draw my limits with people, but but in general, it's like, you just don't know what that person's been through in order to be, become who they are and who they were, and to fight through all of that, like I came from a place where I had no money. I had no day job. I had to make this my career. And for somebody who has a career to talk down to me about what I'm fighting for, or to put me down for trying to book myself, or, or trying to get in touch about booking, or something, whatever the reason be, is just incredibly disrespectful. It's like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not some newbie who's just trying to come in here who hasn't done anything. I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of my own money building my career and living hand to mouth and having no retirement. So, like, come on, So, yeah, I'm definitely learning quite a lot about respect and discipline.
Yeah. Okay, so we've gotten really deep. Let's go super superficial now, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. This is a section I like to call Pick Your Poison. And basically I have 10 different random superficial questions, but I'm only going to ask you to answer one of them. So you can pick any number randomly 1 through 10.
Let's say 8.
Number 8. All right. Oh, I like this one. Okay. So if you were stranded on a deserted island, what 3 things would you have with you?
I can pick whatever I want.
Yep, anything you want.
An unlimited supply of fresh water, because mene wachone, water is life.
Yeah.
2, some sort of a shelter to protect me from the sun, and a blade. So my last name is Cutting, so I would have to have a knife on me so that I could build or create or kill whatever I needed to survive.
Love it. I feel like you and Adele Wolfe answer this question very similarly, because you both went the super practical route. I remember she was like talking like post-apocalyptic shit. Like she's like, I know exactly what I would do.
Exactly. Yeah, but you know what? I've spent years studying the indigenous population, and colonization and consumerism has fucked us all. So, if I can say anything to people, it's #decolonize. Look it up and start to think about what that means.
All right, and our next section is called This or That, okay? And this is our quick fire round. We're just going to go through. I have 2 options, and you pick whichever one you like off the top of your head, all right? And I always mention that you can interpret these in any way you like.
Oh, boy.
Okay, all right, just saying, just throwing that out there. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
That's so difficult.
The first one, right out the gate.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, it's so good. They're hash browns, though. Oh,
yeah.
So good. How about city or country?
God, again, so difficult. Country.
Movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
All right. How about Dita Von Teese or Dirty Martini?
Oh.
I know. We love them both.
I love them both, but you know what? Dirty is a close personal friend of mine. I know Dita too, but Dirty is a close personal friend of mine, and she set the precedent for my career because she accepted me. I mean, the very first show that I did in New York City on September 22nd, 2001, the pit was still smoking when I came up here on a bus, and that night I was in my very first New York City burlesque show, and Dirty was in it. And after it was over, she already knew me from coming to Philly, but she said, "What are you doing, Amber?" I was like, "I'm going to Port Authority to get on a bus to go back to Philly." She said, "No, stay at my house." She's like, "Come with me. Come out with us tonight." And that was like the beginning of my life here. I decided to move here after that. Yeah, so it's Dirty. I love Dita, but Dirty.
Oh, that's great. How about a dirty martini or a pint of beer, though?
Definitely a dirty martini.
Yeah, I gotta go with that too. All right.
Yep.
Day or night?
Night.
How about Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Star Wars, I actually don't know Harry Potter. I mean, I do relatively, but I never got into it.
How about top or bottom?
Top.
She doesn't even hesitate. I like it. That's the dominatrix there. I mean, of course, we're talking about bunk beds. What are you talking about? Like,
whatever it is, I'm on top.
Mountains or ocean?
Oh, it's another hard one. I'm going to say ocean.
Ocean. How about classic or neo-burlesque?
Classic.
Peanut butter or jelly?
Peanut butter.
And comedy or tragedy?
Comedy.
Getting geeky again. How about Marvel or DC?
I'm not really into comic books, so I really don't know what to tell you. I mean, I can't
enough.
really answer that one.
Have you seen any of the movies or anything?
Not really. It's not my bag. I'm not saying
I'll
it's
answer
bad.
for you. Marvel is better.
Okay, all right.
Just teasing. I don't know. How about heels or bare feet?
Heels.
And lastly, the ever important, sleep or sex?
Sleep. Way more important. That's another thing I'd like to tell everybody. Make sure you get your sleep. A lot of people ask me why I look as young as I do, and it's because I've been able to sleep as much as I have.
Sleep is such a good thing. I never, I'm such a night owl that I have trouble getting to sleep, and in the
Same.
morning I just want to like stay in bed forever. So.
Same. I'm up sometimes really late, but you know what? Training has changed that. Now I go to bed early so I can get up and hydrate and eat and go to training.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'll take that into consideration for myself.
Yeah, the benefits of getting older. I don't even need an alarm clock anymore. I wake up at 9 on the dot.
Oh man, that's early. Yeah.
I don't get out of bed till 10.
Sure, but at least you're awake.
Yeah.
That's all right. All right. Well, as we start to wrap up, I would love to hear about 2 YouTube videos that we should check out. If you've got one of yours, I'm sure you have, videos up either YouTube or Vimeo or wherever you've got them. And then another one that's maybe not of yours, maybe burlesque, maybe not, that you just can't get enough of right now.
I don't have a specific link, but honestly, if you just go to YouTube and put in Amber Ray Burlesque, you'll find a pretty wide variety of my work.
Cool. Do you have a favorite that you really like?
There's one that I did. There's a couple I did in Chicago that Jeffrey Harley shot of me that I really like. I think they were both at Untitled. So if you want to try to Google that, I don't have the exact links to them. Maybe I can get those to you after. And one's of me doing my purple classic striptease, and one's of me doing a version of my Lotus.
Well, for everybody listening, I will definitely put those into the show notes as soon as we find a couple that are hers or my favorites. I'll put those into the show notes along with links to find more of those videos, which again, show notes are at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Amber Ray, AmberRay. And we'll also have links to keep up with Amber, because I'm sure now everybody really wants to learn more about you. I know personally I love following your Instagram. There's always a lot of good pictures there. So tell us a little bit about how we keep in touch with you. What are the best ways to find you on the interwebs?
Well, I really like to redo my site because it's 12 years out of date. I have amberray.net if you really need to get to me quickly, but honestly, it's just an archive of my old work. You can find all my new and updated stuff through my Facebook page, which is just Amber Ray. After the slash for pages on Facebook, it's Strip Teasing Siren, because I sing as well, so I just called it Strip Teasing Siren. But you can just look up my Amber Ray fan page. I'm also on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. Instagram is Amber Ray C, the letter C for my last name, which is Cutting. And then I'm on Facebook, but unfortunately I'm pretty maxed out on friends. But a lot of people follow me for political stuff, so I might start another page. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, like I said, I'll put all those links. Otherwise, you can always Google is our best friend, right? Googling all the things, it'll help. So,
Yeah.
well, Amber, this has been absolutely amazing. I love that we, delved into some really deep topics, and you've given me a lot to think about for sure, as you have, I'm sure, with most of the audience. So, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you want to share with the Burlesque Stripped Down people?
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you take my words to heart and open yourself to the possibilities while you're pursuing your passion.
I am sure we will. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will chat with you again soon.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Velvet.
And there you have it, my friends. Not so bad. We got pretty deep, I tell you. And, I'm going to put a little extra after, if you stick around to the very end of this episode, I'm going to put a little extra because we actually talked a little bit after we, quote, officially finished recording. And we talked a lot about, some race and feminism things. And so I'm going to add that into the end here. So if you stick around for a little extra, you'll get to hear a little bonus episode, but a little, well, not quite a whole episode, but a little bonus content anyway. So again, a big thank you, warm hugs to Amber Ray for coming on the show. And I'm hoping to be able to start doing, some more content driven, maybe some roundtable type things in the future to talk about some of these important issues. So once again, if you've missed any of our last episodes, we did have the season 0 sex going on. We had Fifi LaRue come on more recently. And of course, my episode last week on productivity, better burly productivity, hashtag better burly. So if you've been using the worksheet that I give away for free in the show notes for that episode, please let me know what you think, or just let me know what you think about any of these episodes. I always love to hear from you. You can email me velvet@burlesquestrippeddown.com. You can go to the show notes for this episode or any other episode, burlesquestrippeddown.com. This one specifically is /Amber Ray. You can get the comment section down below, kind of start the conversation there and let's get this going. So again, a big thank you to Audible for sponsoring the podcast. If you'd like to check that out, it is at audibletrial.com/burlesque stripped down. You'll get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. So not too bad. Okay, my friends, it has been wonderful chatting with you, as it always is. Please don't be a stranger. Hit me up. Let me know. As always, if you want to join the team, the BSD Posse, burlesquestrippeddown.com/join the posse. If you'd like to donate and help us keep Burlesque Stripped Down alive, you can head to burlesquestrippeddown.com/support to become a patron over on Patreon. And if nothing else, please do share these episodes with all of your friends and lovers, especially the lovers. I know you all want to listen to this when you're naked in bed post-coital. I went there. I did it. All right, gang. I will talk to you again very soon. Until then, make sure that you stay sexy.
There's no end to anything, I mean, there's so much that we have to keep learning and keep confronting and unpacking
and discussing. Like that's the thing. I mean, that's what's important. Is I've done a bit of reading, especially because, like I said, for me lately, it's been all about sexuality and gender. That's been just captivating me for the last year or two. And I can read articles all day long, but it's not until I really start to unpack them with another person that I just you have new realizations, you have new things come up. It's just fucking amazing.
Well, also, I think racism is really important, and I think that amongst white people it should be talked about more. I mean, racism is really our responsibility as white people, There's so many different insidious facets of it that, get in and rip things apart and make things oppressive and worse for other people. And I feel like in burlesque, we've had a lot of problems with cultural appropriation lately. And I think more white people need to join the racism dialogue. And I love to fight for people of color when they allow me to, or at least give them the benefit of the doubt and support that vision.
And it all circles back to what we were talking about earlier with, being able to acknowledge, and this is true for when we talk about sexual assault as well, is when I've been thinking about it a lot, that we have probably fucked up. We are not innocent. We can't keep demonizing, these people are racist, these people are rapists, these people are the monsters. I'm clearly not one of those. Yeah. Because we've all made mistakes.
Fuck yeah, man. And we need to keep confronting them. I mean, even as educated and as experienced as I am about the racism problem, I still have to keep checking myself. I still have to run into uncomfortable moments where maybe I said something or did something that was wrong. And I think that this is the kind of conversation that I would love to have with you if you ever want to have me back to talk about it, because, you know, as white people, it's a huge responsibility, and people do not want to take responsibility, but it's never going to change until we stop it. Just like the same thing with, you know, with the way, you know, men oppress women. We have to just keep calling it out. We have to keep saying no. We have to keep saying forget it. If you're going to become a warrior, you've got to become a real warrior, because look at what the fuck happens when nobody warriors up. I mean, look at what we're fucking doing right now. Look at where we are right now. Ugh. Look at the system that's in charge. We went from an elegant man who gave a shit about the country to somebody who only gives a shit about himself and furthering himself and his own needs and making this a totalitarian state. You know, this is fucking bullshit, man. So,
and that's what happens when we don't confront these things.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm sick.
You are exactly right.
I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, you're so aggressive." I'm like, you better fucking believe it. You know, like, I am aggressive. And you know what? I know what I'm talking about. It's not like I'm coming at you like a fucking ignorant asshole, okay? Like, and that's the thing, is a lot of times when I get into arguments with people about racism, I'm like, hey, listen, I can tell by the level of your argument that you can't have a conversation with me about this until you've done more research. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go on in this conversation until you hunker down and go learn something. And a lot of people don't want to do it. But you know what?
They want sound bites.
Yeah, and when I was confronted about my subtly racist shit that I had no idea I was a part of, you know, like, I was like, why are people so mad at me? And then I became obsessed with understanding why they were so mad at me. And, like, it just became super fucking important to me to not be another fucking piece of shit and to actually do something to change the way things are going, you know? And I'm so sick of people not doing it. I mean, I'm watching communities fall apart. I'm watching people kill themselves. I'm watching, you know, good people die for no good reason because of a system that completely fucks them. So, like, I'm over it, man. And that's part of the reason I'm going into self-defense. I'm going to get I've got people at the school are like, when they hear that I'm doing 10 to 13 classes a week, they're like, holy shit. Oh my God, I need to up my game. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you do. And then, you know, and my trainers are like, now, Amber, you just got to get everybody to come as much as you do. And I said, hey, it's already working. You know, they're already coming more because they understand, you know. If they see somebody doing it, they're like, who the fuck am I? God, I better use this privileged body that I have that is healthy enough to actually even do something like this and go somewhere with it, you know. Because a lot of people who are defenseless, who are small, who are sick, who are handicapped, they can't do that, you know. So, like, you know, self-defense is self-love. That's the name of the game, no matter which way you want to toss it. You know, I've wrestled with being suicidal, mostly because of my mom's abuse. I've come to find as I'm older, but, like, you know, I've wrestled very deeply with that stuff, and back and forth. You know, I have bad times or whatever. But as soon as the election happened, and I just was like, oh no, my life has never been more valuable than right now, and there's no way I'm going down, because now I know I have something to fight for. Now I know I have something that I can become a warrior about, and that really means something. And the hell if I'm going to let my world be taken by this without fucking fighting for it.